Wow. The responses I got on my last post were great. It's relieving to hear that a lot of you can relate to my experiences, or even have some similar ones of your own. Bottom line, people are crazy. I'm sorry about the long gap between this post and the last. I'm doing my best to try and describe things the best I can. I noticed that some people mentioned that I left my manager alone with the violent homeless man who was passed out. In my defense, I'm not allowed to do anything beyond call somebody. My manager told me to go back to work anyways, and the man didn't appear to be hostile while he was sleeping. We were just trying to get him out of the store. A memory that stands out to me took place after I was working there for about 6 months. Yeah, a lot of shit occurred within this time frame, but nothing that you all probably haven't heard 100 times. There are a lot of people who have nothing better to do with their time than walk around a store and not buy anything. It's common, and most of the time they aren't much of a problem, as long as they aren't pulling everything off the shelves and leaving extra work for me and my coworkers. We don't really mind them. There's your occasional shoplifters, but I still don't mind them too much because that's loss prevention's job to deal with them. My job is to assist paying customers and make sure my sections are properly maintained. By this time, I was working day shift. As I was passing through the stationery department, I noticed a man lingering around the spiral notebooks. At first, I didn't think much of it. After my second or third pass through that section, I started to get a little suspicious. I offered him some customer service, and he didn't even acknowledge me. Each time I'd pass by, he'd be in front of a different group of items. I really wish I got a better description of the man, but he was wearing a long pea coat and a rain hat. The rain hat seemed strange because it was a moderately warm spring day without a cloud in the sky. This alone I found particularly strange. After about 2 hours, the man finally left. I immediately started to scan the aisle to make sure he didn't fuck up the entire arrangement, but to my surprise, it was just as it was. Something told me to open one of the spiral notebooks. Although everything was as it should be, I'm so glad that I did. Inside the book was a razor blade, one of those double-sided ones. It was wedged between coiled spine and the front cover so it would stay attached just enough to get somebody. I was in shock. Inside the book was a message scribbled in pen. Fucking bleed. I dropped the book on the floor and carefully yet swiftly grabbed another. More razor blades. Fucking bleed. The message was written in the same place on every book. This sent me into a panic. I grabbed binders, composition notebooks, planners, everything, and only found more and more razor blades. The same message written in every single one. I tore open a box of crayons to find 3 razor blades stuffed inside of it. Same with markers, colored pencils, pens, and almost everything in the aisle was loaded with those things. I immediately called my managers and told them what I'd seen. Next, I called the cashier manager and told her to have every cashier check anything from stationery before ringing it up. Loss prevention came and shut down the entire aisle. The police were called, and a full-on investigation was made. Everything was pulled from the shelves and written off. They never caught the man, and every time I think about it, I get nauseous and dizzy, knowing that there are people out there who are twisted enough to do something so terrible. At the eastern end of the store's parking lot, there's a fence with an opening that leads to a senior housing facility. You'll see a lot of elderly men and women wandering around the parking lot by the fence, getting their daily walk in. There's one man I see all the time. He's usually riding around in his electric scooter with another man who I can assume is another resident at the complex. They don't bother anyone because that side of the parking lot is always barren. On the southeastern side of the building is where our metal scrap dumpster is. There's a giant padlock and chain that hold it shut, and only a few associates have the key. Whenever we need to toss something too heavy to throw over the 5-foot wall to the dumpster, we'd have to have a manager open the door so we can get it inside. One day, around 10 a.m., an urgent message is broadcasted over the intercom. "Response team to the southeastern building, now!" I was near the door at the time and quickly ran out and around the corner towards the dumpster. I saw 2 of those rascal scooters along the side of it. One was occupied by an old man, accompanied by an employee, and the other was vacant. I immediately knew there was something wrong. "What's going on?" I asked in a panic. The old man just sat there emotionless. He kept making sloshing noises with his mouth, like something a salivating horse would make, but wouldn't respond. Finally, the other employee spoke. "He fell in the dumpster, but I don't have the key." "What? How the hell did he manage to get in?" I shouted. Soon enough, my manager and another associate with a first aid kit came barreling around the corner. It only took them half a second to identify the problem. A blur of keys and the swing of the giant metal door revealed an elderly man sitting on the floor of the dumpster. Protruding from the side of his head was a 6-inch rusty nail. The man had an emotionless expression on his face. Blood trickled down the side of his head, and it poured off of his earlobe and dripped onto the dumpster floor. "Are you okay?" asked the panic associate as she unzipped the first aid kit. The old man didn't respond. He grabbed the nail, twisted and pulled it from his scalp, and threw it on the ground. Blood began pouring from the open wound in his head, but he didn't flinch. In fact, the man didn't appear to be in any pain at all. He simply grabbed his chair, tossed it into the basket of his scooter, and sped off. The 4 of us just stood there and stared at the obscenely large pool of blood lying on the floor. The manager turned to look at us, then swung the door shut and locked it. I wish I could explain to you how disturbing this entire scene was for us. It's something we never spoke about beyond that, and we only tried to forget. But every time I have to go to that dumpster, I see the bloodstains on the floor, and it sends a chill up my spine without fail. If you all are still interested in hearing more stories, I'll try and make some time to flesh out a few more. If you made it this far, I hope you'll follow me on Twitter at KingSpook Creepy.